Gigtirement, where we're building our eBay empire for Gigtirement. Well, we're trying anyway. All right, so welcome back to Gigtirement. We're just going to walk through this. That's really what it is. We're not trying to produce anything, or anything like that. Yeah, we'd like it to be interesting, but we're not using AI or anything like that to generate, fancy, splashy materials. We're just trying to get the information out there and share it with everybody in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. So we're trying to establish an eBay presence. We just want to resell on eBay to generate Gigtirement income. Which means, any kind of nest egg we have over here doesn't need to be tapped into. We can do this over here with our eBay empire, as I've affectionately termed it, to generate some revenues that allow us, to do things that we'd like to do without having to dip into the nest egg, right? So that's the concept anyway. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. So right now we're going to do the week in numbers. So let's take a look at it here. Basically, what I put together here, this was inspired by Resellutions. And again, if you haven't checked out his channel, he's got a series. I'll try and link it in the description, or I'll even put a link up here so that you can go check it out. But he kind of is walking folks through, some ins and outs of getting started. But it's not so much specific. Sometimes it is, but other times it's more general and insightful information such as this. Where's your plan? And he makes a valid point. Some people perhaps can function just in their head, but even that can be a bit daunting at times. I definitely am an individual who does well with a lot of moving parts. And this particular endeavor does have a lot of moving parts, even though it's just simply reselling items on eBay. But it really is a full-blown business that has a lot of ins and outs that you wouldn't necessarily think of. You might think, oh, well, I get to go look for stuff, and that's fun, and I get to find things that I think will generate revenue if I sell them on eBay, and that's great too. But there's all the nitty-gritty that goes on. The business side of things, keeping track of the dollars and the cents and what was spent on what, and what's a legitimate expense versus, what are my cost of goods and all of that. So, I'm not going to get into all those details. If you were ever in junior achievement or DECA, you're probably oriented towards this type of thing because you're entrepreneurial at heart. You have that entrepreneurial spirit. So you probably already know a lot of the things that are involved with running a business. So, but the week in numbers, what I ended up doing, and I've been working on a spreadsheet, and I know you're aware of that. It has been this particular listing sheet here that I use as a calculator to identify, what I should list it at, and then it kind of calculates out my projected. And I've done some changes on that, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But what I wanted to focus in on here was what I've done in terms of the planning. And Resellutions, he talks about planning. If you don't take it and put it out onto paper, and what I've done here is put it in a spreadsheet. It's right in front of me. It helps keep me accountable to what I've been thinking, right? I think that is kind of the idea. If you have some goals, some objectives, some of them might be measurable more than, say, others. But when you do something like this, you are somewhat beholden to it. And, I wouldn't say it's hard and fast in that you have to like lock yourself into it, but it is good to get this type of thing out there so that you can kind of manage your day or your week or your month, and you can find spots where, okay, well, here's some me time, or where do I fit this in, or when am I doing sorting and listing, and when am I doing packing and shipping, and when am I doing planning, and when am I doing bops and admin, all those types of things. Business operations, as I affectionately call them, bops. Because you have to plan for doing some of those things. Otherwise, it can just kind of get away from you. You'll put it off. It won't happen. And, you'll be, 10 items, removed from your listing goal. And then next week you'll be 20. So unless you put something down on paper that gives you an objective to meet or a task to complete, the chances are greater that you're not going to do it because you'll get caught up in something else. And that can happen, and sometimes that's okay. Like the other day I got involved in some business operations and admin. I really needed to clean my workspace a little bit and clear out some of the clutter of the items I'd been going through to determine whether or not to list them. So one of those things was to set up another computer, dual monitor, so I can do additional items here. And I've repositioned my camera and recording equipment to this location. I've freed up a little bit more of my space over here where I'm doing the research for eBay listings and things of that nature. And I'm eventually clearing out the items that were on the tables behind me, so that will become my packing station, my shipping station. So sometimes those things do need to, override whatever else it is that you have on the to-do. But as long as you know that you need to get back on track. And so I appreciate Resellutions for bringing that reminder to me. And this is something I've done in all of my endeavors. I've kind of put together my day, and I've sectioned it off and various time slots, and I've kind of plugged in various activities. So I spend from 8 to 9 o'clock planning. From there I move into business operations and admin. So if there's anything I need to take care of administratively, paperwork, filing a document with the state, whatever, it might be generating some kind of report to send to the accountant, or business operations. Cleaning up the workspace is actually business operations. If you were the operations manager, right, or the warehouse manager, that would be part of your operational activities and duties, making sure that the workspaces are prepped, making sure that the process is able to flow smoothly, that you've got adequate supplies, at the packing and shipping station, etc. So, you have to take time to do those types of things. Then eBay sort and list. So again, you can kind of figure that out. I know you understand that, but let's get into the numbers. Gross sales for my second week on eBay, $92,012.00. Wow. I wish, but this is part of the process. And because the approach that I take to entrepreneurship tends to be iterative, meaning I start in some kind of small scale sandbox capacity. I have a concept, I have an idea, and I kind of put it together in a makeshift fashion. Sometimes people call it prototyping, and if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that developed the Palm Pilot, he calls it prototyping. And if you want to look into the gentleman that de developed the Palm Pilot he used that particular method. And as a matter of fact, I think he actually coined the term. Maybe he didn't, I don't know, but check into it. The Palm Pilot guy, he actually conceived of the idea, and then eventually he made a block of wood to look like what he envisioned, and then he kind of carried that around, and he thought, oh, well, what if I could do that with this? And so he would think, oh, well, if I do this, how would I do it on here? And then he would take notes, and then eventually it became a more substantial piece of technology that actually had working buttons and display screen and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it was very iterative or prototyped. And so that's, you know, my approach here. So yet I'm applying, you know, skills and such from past experience to that. And so, of course, I know I need to track my inventory of items, and I need to know my cost of goods, and I want to know what my net sales are compared to my gross sales, and things of that nature. I want to track my inventories. It's all very time-consuming stuff, but you've got to do some front-end heavy lifting, building some of these systems out that help you in the long run, because you'll be able to do the types of analysis you need to do to understand where you know, your revenues are coming from, which things are generating the highest amount of returns on your investment, or which ones have the greater sell-through rate, so you can identify items to be on the lookout for. And that's just somewhat intuitive, and I've picked up some of the lingo like BOLO and such. But when it comes to the daily, and I have $92,012 in gross sales for the week, my goodness, what am I doing? Everyone will want to know. Well, you'll see up here that I'm doing a sum if from the single calc tab, and what I'm trying to do is sum the gross and net sales right here in this column if the date if it has a sold date, right? So if it has a sold date, it should go over here and take the gross, and then it should total each one that has a corresponding sale date to the date given here, 15 December, right? So it should be calculating all of the gross sales cells that correspond to any item that has a sold date that is identical to this date, right? And so I've got something wrong in that calculation. And I think I know one thing that's going to help me is right now I have this information duplicated. And I think what I need to do is have just one line with this information, and then each item should have a single line beneath it with all of the details that I need to understand what my sales are, what my listings are, and you know how long I've had it, you know when I listed it and when it sold. These are all things that are useful, I suppose, right? Because you can see, oh, it took this time for me to obtain the item and then to list it and then to sell it. And you can see if that item tends to sell, you know, at a similar rate across all of the items that are like that. If you want to categorize those items, you probably could. I could easily categorize them into apparel, electronics, any kind of general merchandise goods, and I could even do some analysis on that. But I will go ahead and continue to adjust it and move some of this lot size information to the tail end of this, so I've just got one single line. Now, long story short in this regard, it does take some time, but it's well worth it because we're just iterating at this point. We're starting with something and we're building it out a little bit. We're not expending a lot of time. We're not expending a lot of money. We're not expending a lot of resources in doing it to determine whether or not it's viable, whether or not it's going to work for us. And today we actually experienced a few different things that kind of put a crink in things for us, because we're just going to have to deal with them and decide whether or not it's worth dealing with. Now, back to the spreadsheet, we can, take the information and we can build out some basic analytics or metrics. And so, for example, you can see here, I'm tracking my daily sales at the weekly level, and I can create this little chart, and I can say, well, my sales goal is this red line, and I want to have a goal of 4 items sold per day, right, for a total of 28 sales a week. Now that may be a bit much. I mean, this is really just for the sake of example. And we can see that I sold 1 item on Monday. We can look at our list track, what I'm calling it, right? We can see again our goal. Our goal is 2 a day. And, we met that goal on Monday. We met that goal on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we had 0. On Thursday, again, we met that goal. You can see we had 3 out of 2. So we were good there. So at the end of the week, our totals were nearly met. We missed it only by 4 listings, right? So we missed by 4 listings. Source track, again, same thing. You can see we exceeded our goal of 10. We had 1 bulk buy that had 13 items, so we sourced 13 items. These are items that are all different, so I'm treating them as 13 different items. Whereas if it was a bulk buy that I had 1 item of, and I could sell multiple quantities of that item, I would make that 1 item, right? I wouldn't make it multiples. So we met our source track goals for the week. But here, getting back to our gross of $92,012 for the week, I wish that were the case, but it's not. But these are the types of things that you need to deal with as you decide whether or not this is, for you or not. Now, there are other ways of doing it, right? And so that brings me to this final point on this side of things. Am I going to go to a different type of database structure or system, right? This is a flat file database. It's good for doing this kind of thing. It's good for, creating these types of charts. It can actually be, okay for this type of thing. I can do a lot more with a spreadsheet than what I'm showing here. I mean, I can create a spread for, lookup tables and things of that nature, and have data being drawn from different sheets and pages like I'm trying to do here. And I'll be able to do that once I get it tweaked a little bit. But should I move to something else that's a little more robust and it's tailored more towards handling lots of different kinds of data, like Microsoft Access or some other database that I could build out a database, or maybe there's a template database that I can plug into and say, hey, I can download this, it's free, or it's a one-time fee, and I get the whole database structure that someone's already built out to deal with inventory control for reselling, or even just retailing. I mean, even though you're reselling, you're actually retailing this stuff in a secondary market. So I could move to Access, or I could move to Flipwise, which I have. And, I'll have to say it is quite simple, very user-friendly, and it tracks everything you need it to track, just like I've already built out here in this spreadsheet. And I had this stuff before I was aware of Flipwise, right? So I was already building this out. But obviously, the folks over there at Flipwise know what they're doing in terms of how to deal with data and how to organize it and structure it and things of that nature. So it's very user friendly and easy to deploy. Like, you do not need to know anything about spreadsheets or how to create them and how to get them to do what you want them to do. It is all very much built in, and it's pulling information directly from the source that you need it to be pulled from, eBay. Whereas here in a spreadsheet, I have to collect all of this data. Well, actually, what I need to do is I need to input all of this data into the spreadsheet. Whereas over here in Flipwise, all I need to do is register an account, and it's going to grab all the data right from eBay. And I can see all the items that I've sold. I can see, returned, which I only have 24 items, but I can see sales inventory insights. I can see last 7 days. I can do, the last month, last week, right? And it's got all of that information in there at my fingertips just by registering the account and connecting it to my eBay account. So in that sense, very simple, very easy to use. And it has some other insights like income statement. You can see, kind of where you're at from a financial position by looking at this income statement. Like, what's your revenue in, and what are your expenses out, and how are you looking for the year? You can generate tax reports, and so it's all right there, right? So there's that. There's also QuickBooks, and that's another option for me. It's a little bit more, but I already have QuickBooks, and I'm not paying them monthly for it. I have an older version, and what I can do in QuickBooks, and I haven't really delved into it yet, but I'm going to, is see whether or not I can create inventories that will give me what I'm looking for in terms of this, right? I've already dealt with inventories on other products, so I don't see why not. I guess the question that I have is whether or not within my business environment, do I create a separate entity, which is entirely possible, or can I create just a new profit center? So if my overarching activities that I want to conduct are kind of couched under the umbrella of Douglas Enterprises, then can I have those all contained in one set of books that isolates various profit centers for eBay reselling versus, my Forex trading versus my other income and expenses associated with being an independent adjuster, right? So those are some things to look at because I need to spend money somewhere, but I want to spend it on the most effective thing. And if I am going to spend money on anything, I want to make sure that I'm going to get the most bang for the buck. And if I can generate the kind of insights that are necessary, say in some of the reporting functionality within QuickBooks, not only do I get this kind of Flipwise interface or metrics or analytics, but I also get the full power of it being an accounting software that I can generate, the types of accounting reports. It has a full range of reporting functions that are available to me. So I think I might be able to see a little bit more than I might be building my own flat file database in Excel, even though I'm quite capable of creating, charts for myself, like here. Right, I can do these, right? I can create them, but QuickBooks has those types of charts in some of the reports that you can run? Or is there something else out there that would be more suited for what I need? I don't think there necessarily is. But in any event, let's onward and upward. Let's look at the numbers a little bit more in terms of what I've listed. I listed 3 items this week, and I am really trying to focus on items that I think will sell. So as we consider these numbers, I am going to be looking at a delisting, a set of prospects for delisting, meaning I just don't know if I want to have them out there if they're not actually going to sell. And if I'm using something like Flipwise, I want to try and minimize the number of listings that I have so that I can just maintain that free version until I'm ready to make the plunge into the next level. But in order to do that, I need to be very, very, very strategic about the items that I'm listing. And okay, so here's what I've listed. The Children's Playmate magazine, a lot of 17, 2 from 1948, 6 from 1949, 7 from 1950, and 2 from 1951. I've had a couple of views on it, and again, I'm not holding myself to the views, but I think it does give us a sense of, hey, somebody's at least looking at it. Now, I do have this particular one, but now this is an interesting one because he goes into the idea that this is a first edition, first printing. And again, I do have this very same one, and he's asking $53.95. I want to know how he knows that, and my research has revealed nothing. So I tried to put this one on auction, but when I got to the auction portion, it wanted to charge me a fee. I think I had a reserve set, and so I wanted to see what the market would bear. But what I did instead, because I just wanted to take advantage of the no fee, because I didn't know how much it would be. And so I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that because I don't know. I just went ahead and listed it based on my research of what these items are getting on a, single basis, right? What people are paying. So you can kind of see, here's some different lots. Here's a single for 18. Here's a single for 53. A lot of the other singles are in at $8.50, and some of them are at $5. So depending on which one it is, will determine the price being higher or lower. I think generally speaking, when I found the 1948 ones, those were a little more expensive. 49s were as well. But in any event, so that was one item. This here, it's a US made beef tallow skin moisturizer with almond oil, unscented. This was just a bulk buy. I thought, okay, I'm gonna try it. We'll just see what we can generate out of it. So I feel like I'm competitively priced in here. So we'll see. I don't want to be too low, but I don't want to be too high either. I've got 6 available, so we'll see what the sell-through rate is on these. And again, I don't want to have to delist something like this. I do want to try and at least sell through until I get my break-even point, which I think in this particular case is 2. So I need to sell 2 of the 6 in order to break even. Same thing here with the Bella and Bear. This is a bath salts. It's they're in 2.1 ounce sealed tubes. They're travel mini size. The thing here I'm trying to do, I am priced a bit higher because the MSRP suggests that I be up there. But you'll see that a lot of these, here's one, I'm competing against 12 sealed tubes, $16.99 free shipping, and I am asking $49 free shipping. So I'm moving into the luxury pricing on this particular item. But, I'm trying to market to VRBO and Airbnb hosts. Up your hosting game by providing complimentary Bella and Bear strawberry and raspberry bath salts. Offering these bath salts are just another way to say thanks for the stay. Give your guests the gift of these bath salts to revive their to revive well, anyway, you can read it there. I don't know how to directly market to a specific group on eBay, but it would be interesting to try and figure that out. So if you have customers, possibly repeat customers, and I know like Hotlunch Reselling has some repeat customers, they might be able to share their items with those people when they list them because they know that they're typically interested in those types of things. So we'll see where this goes. I'm not sure how it's going to sell at this price point because I'm definitely on the high end. Now, so that's the lists this week. And let's get into the sold items. So I sold one item this week, and that was the Nikon battery charger. Now, this is an interesting one. This morning, today, so this will cascade into next week's wins. I received a message on this one, and asking about a return, and here it was. So it says the charger wasn't working. I tested the power cord with another device to rule that out, and the cord works fine. I took a closer look at the charger and found significant internal corrosion. Now, one thing, here are the pictures, right? Like they dismantled it. They took it apart, right? So the question, of course, in my mind, is whether or not this is an AI scam. So the message indicates, I've attached photos so you can see what I'm seeing. Please let me know the best way to move forward with a return and refund. So thank you. They're at least asking about how to move forward with a return. So that kind of moves them out of the category of the scam that typically takes on the language of what can we do to resolve this, right? But it does have similar language such as please let me know the best way to move forward with a return and refund. So they're at least not just asking for a refund. So I just simply said, I'm sorry for the issue. Please open a return for the item. A refund will be issued once the item is returned. Thank you. Right? So, but the fact that they cracked it open and like they bought it and it didn't work and they crack it open, then why would they do that? Why would they open up the charger to see if it's, something wrong with it? They already indicated it's not working, right? So if it's not working, fine. It's not working. Send it back. But don't dismantle it and expect a return. But in any event, I'm going to, issue a refund when they return it. And, one of a couple of things are going to happen. I don't know. We'll have to see. Stay tuned. The drama, the new daytime drama here on eBay. As the resellers sell, or as the world turns, or these are the days of reselling. We'll come up with some good soap opera name in the meantime. So we'll see how that one goes. And then I just got another one. So here was an interesting one. This is eBay. So I got this return requested, right? And then it said your funds are on hold. Now, interestingly enough, before I started this message was first. I got your funds are on hold until this request is resolved, right? before I got the return requested. Now here's another one, right? It came in, your funds are on hold due to a request, right? And here, return requested. So this is the first message, right? Uh, your funds are on hold until a request is resolved, right? So this came in first, then I got this, right? Well, we'll see what ends up happening. So I've got to deal with these returns. So stay tuned. So this one here was for the first sale, my first ever sale. And so I was so disappointed to see this one as being, oh, wait a minute now. Wrong one. So that's that one. Yeah, this is at last games. So this is unfortunate. You know, I sent these and we'll see what kind of... See, it says 7 of the 8 cassettes arrived cracked due to poor packaging. See more. I'm sure, I don't know. Well, you know, that sounds like typical AI scam. So I have to deal with those. So, yeah. Wow. So that's about it for the week in numbers, or the week in review, whatever we're going to call this little segment here, because it's beyond the numbers. Maybe it is beyond the numbers. Who knows? Like I say, it's all very iterative. And we'll just see where we end up. You know, these types of things right here, of the 3 items I've sold, 2 of them are now up for returns. And, you know, if that is going to be, you know, par for the course, I just really don't know, you know, whether or not it's worth moving forward with, you know, eBay as a Gigtirement endeavor. But we're not going to lose hope. You know, I look at someone like Hotlunch Reselling, and I see him packing up boxes and, you know, shipping stuff off, and, you know, oftentimes he's doing 8, 9, 10 items. So yeah, I just I don't understand you know, how these types of things, these scams, make their way into a setting for resellers, because it really is for resellers. It is for consumers, obviously, so that people can consume things. But the reseller, honestly, is what makes the platform a viable platform. It's not the buyers. You need to have sellers in order to bring buyers. Without any sellers, you have no buyers, right? If you have no marketplace, nobody's coming to you, right? So it's great that you can create the environment, the eBay, right? I have my little bay in the marketplace and I sell my little goods and wares and whatnot, right? That's why you have buyers. So apparently, obviously, people are selling on eBay and it's not an issue. But if these are legitimate, and, you know, then absolutely, let's get them returned and taken care of. But if they're not legitimate, why is it that a large corporation like an eBay will, in some instances, I suppose, you know, they'll strain out, how does the phrase go? They'll swallow a camel to strain out a gnat. You know, they might be persnickety in one way towards sellers, but in other ways, you know, they don't provide any kind of security measures to ensure that the platform doesn't get taken up with people who are scammers who use AI to generate, false images to, make false claims. We'll see. I'll have to get the product back. And, but cracked cases are one thing, but opening up the item and dismantling it to show that it's damaged, fine, it doesn't work, send it back. So I don't know why. Anyway, maybe my faith in humanity is just, gone out the window. I don't know. But hey, at the end of the day, all I can do is receive the returned item, whether they're full of baloney or not. So that's what we're going to do. But I'll keep you updated. So until then, don't be daunted. Be undaunted and continue to move forward in your endeavors, because simple little hurdles like this is all they are. Hurdles are simply hurdles. They're just things to have to overcome, right? And so that's how we treat them. That's why we run the race, and we run them knowing that there are going to be hurdles. And when we encounter those hurdles, some of them might be beyond just taking them in stride, as you might see, someone who likes to run the 100 highs. They just simply, sprint it out and take the hurdles as they come. They don't stop and analyze the hurdle. They know that they're all the same height. It's like, I've seen that before. I know what my steps are. And, I'm going to be striding over each of these in the same fashion as I encounter them. Major obstacles are another thing. I don't think this is a major obstacle, but, it just doesn't make it fun. But I guess it's part of the fun because we're trying to figure something out that is bigger than ourselves. So in that sense, be undaunted. Here's to building an eBay empire in our Gigtirement. Whatever your endeavor is, be undaunted.